irmãos, canta meu irmãos, que a liberdade em nu e o homem a certeza, com dignidade enterrar semente no pó da ilha no ar, despenhadeiro da vida esperança é toda da meio do mar que nos abraça, sentinela.
Welcome to the Onset Cape Verdean Festival.
Entre estrelas e o Atlântico, é cântico da liberdade. Canta, irmãos, canta, meu irmãos, que a liberdade em nu e o homem a certeza.
Cape Verde Islands is a newly independent nation, approximately 43 years old, and it was liberated from Portugal by the Party of African Independence for Guinea and Cabo Verde.
The history of Cape Verde, the official history that most people refer to, begins with the Portuguese and the establishment of the islands as a major port in the development of European presence in Africa for the slave trade.
It started back with this Ed and Lola Andrade, and he had gone to the Cape Verde Islands, and there's such a vast Cape Verdean community here that he felt that the younger kids weren't getting the knowledge or the history of the islands.
Teaching your youngsters, your children, to know their culture and be proud of it.
We come together to celebrate, to lift one another up, to lift up our home country and our culture, and to express that pride that although we express it all the time, we can do it in a big way and in a public way.
Well, it's a good acknowledgement of the cultural contributions of the Cape Verdean community. The Cape Verdean community has contributed a great amount to the development of this community and the state and the country.
The Cape Verdean community has really, we've multiplied with this festival.
It's good for the next generation to be linked to their heritage and to be able to express the pride that goes along with that heritage, and be aware of all of the shoulders that they stand on to enjoy the pleasures that they receive today.
That's our goal. We want to share. If we do not teach our youngsters the culture of, we will go extinct.
I hope so. I don't know if the percentage is as high as I think. These booklets here that are given out, this is last year's, given out free. Inside it has all the islands. It talks about the islands. Where's the island? And we have recipes for Ajag and Manchup. And see, this helps the younger people to do, and speak in Creole and English. There's a page in there like that. And then we have the history of the different islands. Here we go. See all the islands and the history of the islands. So if the youth is interested, they can just pick up one of these and, you know, look up their history and their ancestors and things like that, which I think is so important to our culture. So, because we're losing a lot of that. We're losing a lot. There's very few people that can say they're all Cape Verdean. My mother could, but my father couldn't. Now I can do less. My children can do even less. Say, I'm all Cape Verdean. And I think that's happening with every nationality. There's no more, oh, I'm all Italian, or I'm all Jewish, or I'm all whatever, because there's so much interracial mixing, which is America. That's what it's all.
Like probably every Cape Verdean in the U.S., I experienced people asking me not who am I, but what am I, right? So that's important because we know that the U.S. racial maze, racial hierarchy dehumanizes people. So to ask what are you, right, is problematic. But nonetheless, my first encounter with that was when I went to college, when I attended undergrad at Duke University in North Carolina. I was in an environment which was mostly coded as black and white, right? It's much more diverse now, but when I was there in the late 90s, I was one of probably 2 or 3 Cape Verdeans on campus that I knew of. And so when I was asked that question, it threw me for a loop. I didn't know what that meant. And I asked people, what do you mean by that? And most often it was coming from African Americans, and they said, well, you don't look black. You look like you have something else going on. And I would ask them, well, what do you mean? And they would say, well, you must have some Spanish in you or some Indian in you because of your features. And at that point, when I would say, well, maybe it's my Cape Verdean heritage or my Barbadian heritage, because I'm also a descendant of a Barbadian immigrant father, they would often say, well, what is Barbados? What is Cape Verde? And that was an interesting exchange in and of itself. But I do think that most Cape Verdeans, if you've left Massachusetts, maybe New Jersey, Connecticut area, and if you've been outside of places where our communities exist, you've been asked that same question.
Yes, they have. Yes, they have. And then my daughter's so funny. She'll say, yeah, I'm a mongrel. You don't want to know. She said, you think Heinz ketchup has a lot of varieties? She says, ask me mine. And I think that's what's happening with the youth today. They have a lot. And they will ask me, you know, what national, not here because there's a lot of knowledge of Cape Verdeans. But when I go to another state, like I went down to North Carolina, they think I'm Spanish. I say, no, I'm Cape Verdean. What's that? You know, or another state, like I've gone to, well, California has a lot of, in Sacramento, I have a godchild there and I go visit her every so often, but they're a big community of Cape Verdeans, so they'll say, you know, they know, oh, I'm Cape Verdean. Oh, that's okay. Now that we have our own flag, before we didn't even have that, they didn't have a clue of what you were. You would say, well, Cape Verdean, well, what's that? You know? But now that we have our own identity, it makes it so much easier.
Now, over the years, a lot of Cape Verdeans have assimilated into other races. Cape Verdeans have married blacks, they've married whites, they've married Hispanics, they've married Asians. I've got Asian cousins, I've got white cousins, I've got Mexican cousins, I got them all because we've mixed. You know, they used to say Cape Verdeans are black and brown. There's a book written, Black and Brown. It's about, you know, we are black and brown. And I would be asked many times when I first went to California and taught school, what are you? And I would always say, what do you mean, what am I? And they'd look at me strangely, what are you? You're not black.
Thanks to the festival here, because we get big publicity in the newspapers and things like that, people are starting to understand, well, around here they do Cape Verdean, you know. But I don't know about outside the base.
Well, I know a couple of times in Germany, they would reference me as a different kind of a different kind of black person, you know, because I refrain from using the word, the N-word, but.
The Cape Verdeans mostly did worked on the bogs because that's what their parents did. Well, being from Mattapoisett, I remember going with my grandfather, and he said, "Bring me a box." After one day, I said, "Grandpa, this isn't for me." You know? I said, "Oh no."
When it came to work, my aunts and uncles were cranberry pickers.
Mostly women. I heard many stories about Cape Verdeans working in the cranberry bogs, and one of the stories that's the most important to me is the story of my own grandmother. Again, her name is Inez. She explained to me that she had to leave school around the age of 12 to help support her family by working in the cranberry bogs. And she explained to me that that was very frustrating for her as a girl because she loved school. She loved math especially and other subjects, but she encouraged me to take that story and to use it for my good. And she encouraged me to go and get an education and to go as far as I could and get as much education as I could.
You know, there's no question that the cranberry industry in Cape Cod was built on the backs of Cape Verdeans. They built those bogs. They picked those berries. There were no automated as we have now. You picked with a scoop. And going to the cranberry bogs was a family outing on Saturday and Sunday for the family. My grandmother would make tons of sandwiches. And from the oldest to the youngest, 5 or 6 years old, you got in the back of a pickup truck and you went to the bog. And that was your weekend. Your uncles and aunts would scoop the berries. The older cousins would wheel the berries once the boxes were filled. And the youngest ones, like myself, would carry empty boxes to keep up behind the pickers. So it was a family outing.
Oh, I grew up picking, you know, we used to, even when I was living in Rhode Island, we came down to harvest the cranberries and the blueberries and the strawberries. That was part of our constant activities.
Reunions, family is a very vital ingredient in our culture. And we believe in, you know, supporting one another. Like I said, my aunt was sponsored. My mother's oldest sister, one of her older sisters, was sponsored to come here. And once she got here, she sponsored others to come here. And she was well known in the Scituate area, you know, as the Sojourner Truth. She really took in people. And once they wanted to come, contact her. She'll sponsor you. And then once you get here, you're on your own. I'll keep an eye on you for a while, see that you're grounded, help your husband get a job. But that's how it worked. You just build and build and build. So Cape Verdeans came in there in clusters. They lived in the greater Brockton area, which is very heavily populated Cape Verdean area now. And they were in the Providence area where my aunt lived, you know, and there was a pocket of us there. And there was a large pocket in Cape Cod. And by Cape Cod, I mean Hyannis, and large, obviously, in the Wareham area. So the family was like, you know, together in that sense. And they were, our weekends were visiting each other.
I'm an American-born of Cape Verdean descent black man. Black not because of the color of my skin, but black because I know the black experience of deprivation, degradation, and discrimination.
As an individual and as a community organizer and activist, as a writer, as an educator, I identify myself as being a child of the African diaspora, being Cape Verdean, being of Barbadian descent, being West Indian, being a black woman. I embrace all of it, being an African woman, and the answer that I may give probably will depend on the context or on who's asking.
My name is Sandra Wright, and I'm running for State Senate in the 1st Plymouth and Bristol County District, which includes Taunton, Rainham, Dighton, Berkeley, Bridgewater, Middleborough, Wareham, Carver, and Marion. I welcome all of you here today. It's a great day out here at the festival.
Hello, my name is Marsha Colbert. I live here in Onset, Massachusetts, and I'm representing SGI USA. It's a Buddhist organization, and we've been around as an organization in the United States for about 80 years. The philosophy goes way back over 700 years. Right now we are at the Cape Verde Festival, and this is our 4th year being here, and we're just representing Buddhists in the area, in the Cape Cod and the Cape Verde environment. Okay, and right now we are displaying victory over violence, never give up, and we just want to make a presence in the community, trying to let people know that there are solutions to a lot of obstacles in one's life as far as whatever they're dealing with.
My name's Janelle Valdez. I'm of Cape Verdean descent from the island of Fogo. I hand custom made all the jewelry in front of you with the conto de hoje that I have friends and family bring back to me. This is my 3rd time here in Onset.
Hi, I'm Lisa from Lily's Lights Forever Candles. These are all handcrafted by myself, and they're made specially so that everything is sealed tight up inside, and it's all sealed nice, and then you just drop in your little tea light candle so that you can get your glow from the center out.
Okay, my name's Jamie Sylvia. I'm the JV coach for Wareham varsity basketball and JV basketball. My friend Stephen Faniel is the varsity coach. He's been involved in the program for approximately 10 years. This past year he became the varsity coach. Prior to that he was the JV coach for 9 years, 10 years, and he's always been a part of Wareham ever since he graduated from Wareham High School. Currently we're trying to raise money. The kids are playing in a basketball tournament in Orlando at Disney in December, and we've been raising money for the last 3 months for them to go to Disney, and we're doing pretty good because the community is helping out quite a bit.
But I think these festivals are important, especially in today's day and age when we are in a country where there's increasing xenophobia and anti-immigrant sentiment. Given the history of race and racism and oppression here in this country, these festivals are important to give voice to who we are, to honor the traditions that we come from and the heritage that we possess.
That as being a 3rd generation born here, my grandparents were born in the Cape Verde Islands. My mother was born here. And I find that I used to speak fluent because I had to speak that to my grandparents. And now that they're gone, and my children don't even, some of them pick up a word here or there, I don't use it as often. And you start to lose it. I have to stop and think, well, how am I supposed to say that? And that's sad, and I enjoy coming to this and listening to them, you know, speaking.
The diversity that we experience in this town is part of our richness, and that's what that Cape Verdean festival represents, is part of that diversity.
Gosto de antigana, não tô mal no bar embaixo,